Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you guys can all see really well, and we have wild Indians running around the apartment complex right now, so you will hear them. So I wanted to talk about the difference between living in a tiny house when you're off-grid and living in a tiny house when you're on-grid. We can talk about apartments versus normal tiny houses if you guys want to. So the biggest difference is running water. It isn't necessarily the space that makes a huge difference. Even the bathroom itself doesn't make that big of a difference as far as like having an indoor toilet versus an outdoor toilet. Hey, off-grid, how are you? Really the big difference is you're not hauling water. When we're off-grid, we are really off-grid. We have a water pump that's a hand pump. We have an outhouse, and we don't really mind the outhouse, especially in the summer. We really don't mind it. The only time you really mind an outhouse is if, you know, you're in freezing temperatures and then the toilet seat can be very, very cold. Hey Jim, how are you? So here I am in front of our little apartment now. It is very small. It felt a lot smaller. There's the wild Indians. It felt a lot smaller when we first got here because John had a lot of boxes that hadn't been put away yet. We didn't have any furniture. Since then, I have built furniture, even though we've only been here for 2 days. I took some old things and I made some new things, and we visited a secondhand store and spent like $18. And now we're pretty much done. I'm really happy with the results. Tiny house, off-grid and on-grid as far as like space, not that much different. So again, the outhouse doesn't really bother me unless it's freezing weather, and then it is hard to talk yourself into getting up and going out to the bathroom, especially in the middle of the night. No, wild Indian. Okay, especially in the middle of the night, it's hard to get up from a warm bed and run out and go to the bathroom in the outhouse. So it's not freezing here though yet, so we haven't really noticed a difference in the bathroom thing. The running hot shower is not a big difference. We have a hot shower at home at the off-grid cabin. All it takes is you just have to go pump a couple gallons of water, heat it up, put it in the sprayer, and then it's lovely. We had that greenhouse that we put plastic up around the deck on the tiny house, and what we would do is we would get the rocket stove going really, really nice and warm, and then we'd open the front door. All the heat would go out of the cabin into that greenhouse that we had created, and it was a very nice, warm, wonderful place to take a shower, even in winter. So that did not change. The hot shower did not change. We use more water. Sorry, it's so loud. We use a lot more water when we're on grid just because it's there, not because we need it, if that makes sense. We get lazier with water because we're not having to pump it. So that is the big difference that I noticed, is that when we're at the sink, we're running water instead of having a bowl of water that we wash everything with. Where normally it would take us less than a gallon of water to wash all of our dishes. We don't have any more dishes than we did before, but we were really careful with it. It would take maybe a gallon of water to wash all of our dishes from a meal, including the pots. Now we have water running, and that bothers me. It's just human nature is what doesn't cost you anything, you use a lot of. And so so yes, we are in Tulsa now. This is our little apartment that I am sitting in front of. It is still quite small. We have 2 bedrooms, and it doesn't feel any more or less spacious than our off-grid house in Idaho, because in Idaho we had our sleeping lofts that we slept in, we had our little living space, we had our kitchen, and I think we did a really good job designing our little off-grid cabin. And so this space actually has a lot more space that you can stand up and move in, but as far as square footage, I'm not sure that it's that much different, only because of the sleeping lofts, if that makes sense. Because we had the sleeping lofts, we couldn't stand up in them, but we could store things in them. One side of our sleeping loft in the cabin was just for storage. Okay, so what happened to the garden? So the garden back at the off-grid cabin is still there. And if you guys are wondering about the tiny house we had here in Tulsa, that one was the red house we were in before, and John's work was closer to this one, and this one is close to a very nice bike path that will allow us to get around without having to have a second vehicle. So we are minimalists. We like to stay in a very tight budget, just because we enjoy that. We enjoy saving where we can, and so we have one vehicle. And that's why we decided to move to this apartment, was it's very close to bike paths that allow us to get to grocery stores and anything else we need to get to, again, without having to have that second vehicle. Yeah, Weedy Garden said they never wanted to go out at night, especially in the summer due to rattlesnakes being everywhere. And that's true. There are different things that you need to be cautious about when you're having to go out at night. We were talking about the outhouse earlier. A lot of times what we would do is that if the girls needed to go out at night, we would have a bucket set up out in the little greenhouse for them to pee into if they needed to pee. But we actually had trained ourselves really, really well. After we'd been there for a few weeks, we didn't need that anymore. And because we would stop drinking water after a certain time at night, like after 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we just wouldn't drink any more water. And that way nobody ever needed to go pee at night, and nobody ever had to go out to the outhouse. I don't get up at night to go to the bathroom. I used to when we were all the way on grid, because I'd be chugging water at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. But we just trained ourselves not to drink water after a certain point, and it just works. The kids don't get up at night to go to the bathroom. I don't get up at night to go to the bathroom, and it's just about training your body functions. How old am I? I am 38. Why did we move? So John went to school here in Tulsa. It was much less expensive than going to school in a lot of the other places that he was interested in. And he really, really likes to be in warm weather. And so Tulsa worked pretty well for us. But the reason that I was in the off-grid cabin back in Idaho was that our renters needed help with watering, and they were not comfortable yet with delivering baby goats. And so I went back, and I've been back twice now to help the renters in the off-grid cabin, make sure they had everything so that we didn't have fruit trees and everything dying. Off-grid Lifestyle said, are you allowed to make a community garden close to your apartment? I haven't asked yet. It turns out we have a little bit more space here than I thought we did. We actually do have enough space that I could put up some garden boxes. I would have to ask permission about the way that I did it so that it wasn't killing the grass. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I know, right? I do that all the time, Kathy. Eventually I always show it. And I used to be a lot more paranoid about that, and then I just stopped being paranoid about it because there's creepers everywhere. Okay, so those are the big differences. Is I have water in the house that gets wasted a little bit more, and if it was winter and it was really cold, we would really notice the difference in outhouses and versus indoor plumbing. But we had figured it out. Again, we had figured out a way to not have it be awful. And so if in the winter the kids had needed to go to the bathroom, we could have had a bucket for pee, not for solid, but for pee, for kids to pee into, that would then be taken and put into the outhouse. And that works too. But the plastic covering around the deck made a huge difference, because it gave me an outside place to do building projects in the winter, and it gave us a space to cook if we felt like we wanted to cook outside instead of in the cabin if it was too warm. And so far that's pretty much the only difference. Hey Alicia, how are you? Thanks, Kathy. Let's see, Neb said, I'm about to build a steel storage container home out of 3 40-foot HCs. So we've seen some of those, I think, right? Are you, HC, what's an HC? Is that like one of those moving containers? We've stayed in those before, and they're actually pretty neat, as long as you don't get one that has been treated in pesticides. Some of them have had pesticides like soaked into the floor and soaked into the walls, and it's not a good place to live. So you have to be kind of, whenever you're doing one of these like DIY refurbished, reuse, recycle things, Always make sure you source a lot of these things like IBC containers or the shipping containers. They have been treated with nasty things, and you want to be really careful that you're not then living in them. I always miss my wood burning heater. It doesn't matter what time of year it is. I like to be able to look at it. And when it gets to be wintertime, I do get frustrated at not having a wood stove. But, you know, you make sacrifices in life and you do things different. And my parents, I think, are thinking about having Darwin from the Honeydew Carpenter build them one in their basement and see how they like it. High cube. I haven't seen a high cube. What's the difference between a high cube and a shipping container? Anyway, so that's my live show for today. I get off track too easily. So for the last 2 years, was it last 2 years? No, last year, because we got the cabin last year has it? It's been over a year. We've had the off-grid cabin for over a year, 2 full summers. We've been there for the majority of the fall last year and for all the summer this year. And it's been a good experience. We've really enjoyed it. It saved us a ton in rent when we're in Idaho and we're visiting family and taking care of the property. It's really nice to have it. So I enjoy it. It's not for everybody. John enjoys it when he's with us. And it gets better every year. I love having projects to work on, so it is also fun to be in a tiny apartment-ish. I'm not used to in-town living yet. The traffic is interesting, and I find that I breathe a lot more calmly once we get out into the country, so I'm definitely still a country girl, but it's interesting to try this out. So our mailing address, Chris, if you're wondering, is P.O. Box 431, Rigby, Idaho 83442, and that's Dirtpatcheaven. So yes, if you want to send us something, and somebody keeps asking me, and I need to get onto it, they keep kindly sending me their dog hair that I could spin, and I need to put that on the Etsy store. So if you guys have any wool or dog hair or some other kind of animal fiber you'd like to have spun and you don't know how, we are going to be offering that on our Etsy store. I keep forgetting to put it up. And it depends on what kind of gauge you want. If you want it really fat, it's cheaper for me to make it than if you want it really thin because of the time it takes to spin. And I don't have a spinning wheel right now, so that's another thing I need to get done here pretty soon. All right, so I'm gonna head because we are supposed to be running out to do something else. Go over to Facebook, Dirtpatcheaven on Facebook. Catherine's going to be doing a live show on how to make soap at 10 o'clock Mountain Time. So we'll talk to you later.